Picture this. It's a perfect Saturday in July. Maybe 85 degrees, blue sky, a light breeze. The kind of day most people wait all winter for. They're packing coolers, heading to the beach, firing up the grill. But for you, you're looking out the window with a knot in your stomach.
Right. For a specific group of people, that sunshine doesn't look like fun. It looks like a threat.
Exactly. You step outside to check the mail, maybe a 2-minute walk, and by the time you get back to the porch, you aren't just hot. You are drenched. Your hands are shaking. The world is tilting sideways. You feel like you've just run a sprint, but all you did was walk 50 feet.
It's a terrifying feeling, and it's the reality for thousands of people living with adrenal insufficiency.
So today we are deep diving into a blog post from My Adrenal Life titled The Overheated Engine. We're going to answer a question that sounds simple, but is actually incredibly complex. Why is heat so dangerous when your adrenal glands don't work? I'm Jake.
And I'm Rachel. And Jake, this isn't just about feeling uncomfortable. We're talking about a physiological system failure. The article uses this great metaphor of an overheated engine, and I want to really take that apart today.
Yeah, let's start there, because I think for most of us, sweating is it's a nuisance, right? It's passive. You get hot, you drip, you wipe it off. But this article suggests that for someone with adrenal insufficiency, or AI, sweating is actually an expensive biological transaction.
Expensive is the perfect word. To understand this, we have to go back to the basics of what adrenal insufficiency actually is. Historically, this condition was first identified by a British physician named Thomas Addison back in 1855. He noticed patients who were incredibly weak, had low blood pressure, and often had this darkening or bronzing of the skin.
Right, which is why primary adrenal insufficiency is called Addison's disease.
Exactly. Whether it's Addison's or secondary AI, which comes from the pituitary gland not sending the right signals, the core problem is a lack of cortisol. And I know, when people hear cortisol, they think stress belly or anxiety. We've demonized cortisol in pop culture.
It's the bad guy hormone.
But it's actually the get up and go hormone. It's the keep you alive hormone. And one of its critical unsung jobs is regulating your body temperature or thermoregulation.
Okay, so take me through the mechanics. I walk outside, it's 90 degrees, my body gets hot. What is cortisol supposed to do that it isn't doing in these patients?
So normally when you heat up, your brain sends a signal to your blood vessels to dilate, to widen. This brings hot blood to the surface of your skin so the heat can radiate away. It's like opening the windows in a hot house.
Vasodilation. I remember that from high school biology.
Right. But here's the catch. When your blood vessels widen, your blood pressure naturally drops. In a healthy person, cortisol helps maintain what we call vascular tone. It works with adrenaline to keep those vessels just tight enough that even when they dilate to release heat, your blood pressure stays stable. Cortisol is the backstop.
I see. So without cortisol, the vessels just flop open.
Essentially, yes. It's like a garden hose that suddenly loses water pressure. The vessels dilate too much, the blood pools in the extremities, and boom, your blood pressure bottoms out. That's why the article mentions dizziness and fainting. It's not heat stroke in the traditional sense. It's vascular collapse.
That explains the dizziness, but the article also mentioned something that really stood out to me. It said the body goes into a panic mode. If the body is already failing to manage the heat, why does it panic?
This is where it gets really interesting and honestly kind of scary for the patient. Your body has a backup system. If blood pressure drops dangerously low, your autonomic nervous system sounds the alarm. It dumps adrenaline into your system to try to keep your heart pumping.
Okay, adrenaline spike, that sounds helpful.
It tries to be, but one of the side effects of an adrenaline dump is sweating. Massive, cold, clammy sweating. So now the patient is in a double bind. They are sweating to cool down because of the heat, but they are also sweating because their body is going into shock from the low blood pressure.
Wow. So you're not just hot, You're in a physiological crisis.
Exactly. You're sweating from two different triggers at once. And that brings us to the second point the article makes, which I think is the most overlooked aspect of this disease, the energy cost.
The energy crisis. The article said sweating isn't passive, but I just sit there and sweat. It doesn't feel like work.
It feels passive to you because you have a full tank of gas. But physiologically, sweating is active transport. Your sweat glands have to pump ions, sodium and chloride, to move water onto the skin. That requires ATP. That requires energy.
And cortisol is involved in energy regulation too, isn't it?
It is the master regulator of glucose. Cortisol helps convert fats and proteins into usable sugar. People with AI often struggle with hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. So imagine you are low on fuel to begin with. Then you step into the heat. Your body tries to run the cooling fans, the sweat glands, at maximum speed. It drains your battery almost instantly.
So that crushing fatigue the blog mentions, that's not just the heat makes me sleepy, that is cellular exhaustion.
It's metabolic bankruptcy. You have spent energy you didn't have just to keep your core temperature from spiking.
That's a heavy concept, metabolic bankruptcy. Now, I want to pivot to the third point, because this seems specific to a certain subset of patients. The article talks about the electrolyte drain and mentions aldosterone. Can you break that down? Because not everyone with AI has this specific issue, right?
Correct. This is a crucial distinction. We have primary AI, Addison's, and secondary AI. In secondary AI, the problem is usually in the brain. The pituitary gland isn't telling the adrenals to make cortisol, but the signal to make aldosterone stays intact.
Okay, but in Addison's, the adrenal gland itself is damaged.
Right. So in Addison's, you lose both cortisol and aldosterone. And aldosterone is the salt keeper. Its entire job is to tell your kidneys and your sweat glands, hold on to the sodium, don't let it leave the body.
So if you don't have aldosterone, the salt just pours out?
It pours out in your urine and, crucially for this topic, in your sweat. There was actually research done way back in the 1940s, Kahn's research, that showed the sweat of patients with Addison's had incredibly high concentrations of sodium compared to healthy people. They aren't just losing water, they're losing salt at a rate the body can't sustain.
And salt isn't just for flavor. I mean, we need it for our nerves, our muscles.
Salt is the conductor of electricity in the body. If your sodium drops too low, a condition called hyponatremia, you get muscle cramps, confusion, nausea, and eventually seizures. This is why the drink more water advice can actually be dangerous for someone with Addison's if they aren't also taking in salt.
Wait, really? Drinking water can be dangerous?
If you just drink plain water while you're profuse sweating and losing salt, you dilute the remaining sodium in your blood. Even further, it's a washout effect. The article emphasizes this. Hydrate with electrolytes. It's non-negotiable.
That's a huge takeaway. It flips the standard health advice on its head. So we've got the broken thermostat, the energy drain, and the salt leak. It's a perfect storm.
It is. And I want to touch on the cultural impact of this, or maybe the social impact, because you look fine.
Right. It's an invisible illness.
You're at a barbecue. Everyone is sweating a little bit, but you're sitting there, maybe you look a little pale, and you say, I need to go lie down. People think, oh, it's just a little heat, don't be a killjoy. They don't see that your blood pressure has just dropped to 80/50 and your body is fighting for equilibrium.
It creates this isolation. Summer is supposed to be social, but if you have AI, summer becomes a season of confinement. You have to live in the AC.
There's a real psychological burden there. The fear of the crisis. An adrenal crisis, which is total vascular collapse, can kill you. And heat is a known trigger. So every time you step out into a heat wave, you're calculating, is this worth the risk?
The article mentions this concept of a stress dose. I found that fascinating. The idea that you can proactively medicate against the weather.
Yes, since your body can't make extra cortisol to handle the heat stress, you have to provide it. This is standard endocrinology now, mimicking the body's natural rhythm. If a healthy body produces more cortisol on a hot hike, the AI patient needs to take more hydrocortisone to match that demand.
But that's tricky, isn't it? It's not an exact science. You don't have a gauge on your wrist telling you your cortisol levels.
That's the nuance. It's an art form.
Patients have to become experts in their own physiology. They have to learn to recognize that specific internal shaking feeling the article describes. That's the warning shot. If you ignore that to be polite or to finish the hike, you're in trouble.
It's interesting you mentioned the shaking. The article listed that as body's alarm. Are there other practical things? I mean, besides staying inside forever, what can these folks do?
The article had some great tips that align with what we know about thermoregulation. Preemptive cooling is a big one. Don't wait until you're hot.
So like wearing an ice vest?
Ice vests, cooling towels on the neck where the big blood vessels are. If you can keep the blood cool before it circulates, you reduce the demand on the sweat glands and the salt intake. I cannot stress the salt enough for the Addison's patients. Pickle juice, salt tablets, soy sauce, it's medicine for them.
It's funny, we spend so much time in the health world being told to cut sodium, and here is a group where sodium is literally a lifeline.
Context is everything in medicine.
So, Rachel, zooming out a bit, we've talked about the mechanics. What's the legacy of this condition? I mean, we have treatments now, but it wasn't that long ago that this was a death sentence.
Oh, absolutely. Before the 1950s, before we could synthesize cortisone, a diagnosis of Addison's was terminal, usually within a year or two. The discovery of cortisol replacement won the Nobel Prize for a reason. It gave people their lives back. But, and this is the big but, it didn't give them a perfect regulatory system.
We can replace the hormone, but we can't replace the automated delivery system.
Exactly. A pill taken at 8 a.m. doesn't know that it's 95 degrees at 2 p.m. That's the gap where the danger lies. And that's why education like this article is so vital. It shifts the power from the doctor to the patient. You have to be the captain of your own ship, or, to use the article's metaphor, the mechanic of your own engine.
That engine metaphor really holds up. You can't run a high-performance engine without coolant and oil. And for AI patients, cortisol is the oil and aldosterone is the coolant.
And salt is the spark plug? Maybe we're stretching the metaphor now.
Maybe a little, but the point stands. You know, reading this, I felt a sense of almost validation for these patients. It frames their struggle not as weakness, but as a mechanical reality.
That is the most important takeaway. When you have AI, you often feel like you're just wimping out. You see everyone else playing frisbee in the sun, and you feel defective. But understanding the biology, knowing that your blood vessels are literally failing to constrict, that your ATP is being drained, it reframes the narrative. You aren't weak. You are operating a manual transmission in an automatic world.
I love that. A manual transmission in an automatic world. You have to consciously think about things that everyone else's body doesn't autopilot.
Precisely. And that takes mental energy, too.
So if you're listening to this and you have a friend or family member with AI, maybe cut them some slack this summer. If they say they need the AC, they aren't being divas. They're managing a medical crisis.
And if you have AI, trust your body. That inner shaking, that dizziness, that is valid data. Don't ignore it.
Rachel, this has been an eye-opener. It really changes how you look at something as simple as a hot day. It's a reminder of how fragile and amazing our homeostasis really is.
It really is. We take for granted that we can walk into a sauna and walk out alive. It's a biological marvel.
Well, thanks for breaking it down for us. This is one of those topics that seems niche until you realize just how profound the physiology is underneath it. If you found this episode helpful, or if you know someone navigating life with adrenal insufficiency, send this their way. It might just help them explain to their friends why they're skipping the beach trip this weekend.